I'm Mike, former Hells Angel in Fresno, and I'm chatting with Staxx.
Welcome to this episode of Chattin with Staxx. I'm your host, Bill Staxx, and today I got Mike Lynch doing bikes and stuff.
Yeah, just, when I moved up here, I brought 3 or 4 bikes with me, and I'm just pulling them out one at a time and finish each one up, because I bought all these when I was in California for income. And, I can't ride 4 bikes. And so I thought, build them, paint them, get them all done up, break them all in, and then, sell them and move on to the next project.
How much do you sell them for?
Well, it depends, but whatever fair market, because everything I do, motor work, detail work, automatic paint job, pinstriping. So everything that I do, what I'm trying to do, just make it turnkey ready. Bang. If you like it, it's got everything. It runs good, looks good. I'm one of those guys with the new tires, new brakes. I can't sell a bike and then have somebody, go down the street. Oh, look at him. I can't do that.
Yeah.
So I try to take my time, obviously, and do it right. And that way, because this is all new, or I'm new up here, so that people need to know that if I sell a bike, it's well worth the money that they're paying.
And that's pretty messed up that they try to put that bike thief label on you.
Well, the reason that I had to, because I had no way to defend myself in my case because of the other people involved in the case. So I just told my lawyer, I said, hey, look, just get me the best deal you can. And if I have to say, this, then I'll say it. If it makes everything go away and I got the less amount of time, so it happens, but, starting fresh up here and, when people talk to me, what happened 15 years ago really isn't in the mix today, obviously.
You have a whole new life, right?
Well, I think so. I took a big chance on just saying, screw it, lock, stock, and barrel, and just leaving. And then when I came up here, I flew up here for a week, and this house that I'm in now had 2 nice little workshops on it, nice, clean, remodeled 2-bed. You know what I mean? It was right up my alley, so I just went for it. I came up by myself. I'm still up here by myself, and but the mind is clear, and I feel healthy, mentally,
So there's less people around, though, right?
Hey, we don't even have a stoplight in this town. Okay?
Yeah.
I think the population in my town's like 1,100.
What time does it close down, the town?
I would say by 9 o'clock, it's a ghost town. And which is cool because I'm done. I don't, I don't need to be out and about at 9 o'clock at night. Weekends are pretty good up here because the mountain folk always stay entertained. We got rivers, lakes, we got it all. So they figure out, I think this weekend coming up, there's a river boat poker run. Everybody gets out there fancy. Wow, you got to see some of these rafts these guys get. Ice chest, this umbrella, little fan over here squirting. These guys go all out.
Are you going to go to that? You going to go?
I go see what's up, and I get to go meet people, and it's part of the lifestyle up here. So I can't just trolling for money. I got to get out here and get in the mix a little bit. How
about the winters? Is it really bad up there?
I haven't seen one yet, but I've heard that we're due. But the 2 winters that I've been up here, yeah, there's snow. Yeah, you don't get to work. Maybe 3 months, you're dead in the water because you got snow, you got wind, and like I said, with the temperatures being sometimes high of the day is 30 and the low is minus whatever. But with me, I have so much metal in my body from all the surgeries and all that. If I go outside, I'm out there half hour, everything in my body is frozen. So I got all these steel parts and these rods and these artificial, you know what I mean? And they all start hurting. So, but I plumbed a heater into the back shop. So hopefully this year I can turn on the heater, go get some work done, even though it's miserable outside, and, just make progress, make some progress and keep busy.
Well, last year you didn't get no work done.
Well, I mean, I was not expecting it, and I wasn't really ready for it. I thought, well, once it goes into snow mode or cold mode, just like where you live, digging out shit fucking 8 feet up to the door.
It's not fun.
I remember you were trying to dig out your window.
Remember? Yeah, the whole fucking garbage can was covered with snow.
And that's what I said. I said, I got nothing to complain about. Mine's only a couple feet deep. I'm cool.
Man, it was bad. One of them was really bad. Yeah.
But anyway, that's part of what you sacrifice to get peace of mind, get your mind right. And this is the atmosphere to do it in. I'm glad I made this move. I know, just having a clear head, and then, I'm still in contact with everybody that I can, and like this show, and, a bunch of us have gotten together because of this show, and now we're talking on a regular basis. And, it's kind of nice to kind of feel that we're talking and doing what we're doing without the drama.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Leave the drama.
Well, the under the gun and always on the run, and just, bang, 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 all of us. Anybody that you have on here, you can believe they was all busy. East Coast, West Coast, it's everybody thinks it's the Hollywood lifestyle. I go, well, about 15% of it is. The rest of it, your ass is doing something for somebody somewhere. There's always issues and fires that get started, and we got to put them out.
You think it's a lot more rules versus when you were in the club versus now, right?
It was well, when I started, the discipline and the shit that's going on right now would have never happened. I mean, some of the incidents I hear on the internet and through the grapevine or whatever, they never would have happened. Some of the personnel that are speaking up nowadays would have never made it in anywhere in California. They were just very disciplined, very much by the rules. And when there is a rule and you break it, there is consequences. Where nowadays people do anything they want, tell on people, talk to police. I mean, that was something that you never had to worry about when I first started.
Like they break the rules and they walk away without a scratch on them.
Nowadays, you can, basically you walk away and there's really no repercussions to the actions or the problem that you started with your other guys. Because what you do, if believe it or not, it affects every guy in that charter. And sometimes when the problems are bigger than just the charter that you're in, now you're affecting more people that are members, and they didn't do shit, but yet they're being accused of the same thing I am. You know what I mean? And vice versa with me. When somebody does this over here, believe it, it'll trickle down to us sooner or later. And, the powers that be will start digging, and start pushing. It's nice when it's quiet, but it don't stay quiet very long. We get along with people for about 6 months and then it's all out fucking, you know what I mean? We got 5 clubs that we're at it with and we can't go, everywhere we go, it's just a constant issue that we have to deal with.
Tell me about when you first started, when you first got introduced to any of these clubs and what your first experience was like being a hang around. And
yeah, see, we basically formed a club that at the end of the rainbow, that was our goal. We want to show that we can operate as a club. We have our way and our connections and our support base in our town. Without that, you're basically nothing. It's just you and the law enforcement or whoever, But once you get in there and you start doing things for the public and you're given, not just taken, that's how you win over. And then the powers that be see that stuff or they hear it. And then when they hear, that's how it was me. I guess a few guys came down, they said, hey, and I took them around to a couple of the places and showed them what we had going on, our clubhouse or this and that. And then people started, raising the eyebrow like there's potential here because of the gap, in California right there. The Central California had a pretty big gap. And so I think that when we were approached, they wanted to close up that gap with people they could trust, and represent, the biggest club in the world.
were you guys wearing diamonds back then? And did you ever ask permission to start this club?
It wasn't really permission. We ran it by, first of all, you got your local guys, and we had a couple of local clubs that have been here 35, 40 years. And, the first guy that was running the show, he just said, fuck everybody. And that put a sour taste in these other clubs' mouths. What do you mean, fuck us? We've been here 35 years and they were old school and they weren't like us, but they had their things going on and they lasted that long. So you got to give them their props. So I went to them on my own and just said, hey, look, that's not the way I feel. And the rest of my guys know most of you. We've been around you guys all our life and we don't have any problem, but here's what we're going to do. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Here's the patch that we're going to wear while we're getting this thing together. And, I didn't say they were jumping for joy, but they understood and they liked that approach a whole lot better than fuck you. And,
we're going to do what we want.
Well, this guy didn't realize, and I'm telling you, we had a meeting one day and he said, and I don't know if he had a couple shots in him or what, but he says, I'm tired of everybody that wears a 3-piece patch in our town is fucking Mexicans. Okay, well, first of all, my throat drummed right into my stomach. And then I heard something in the back room that sounded much like an ejection port and something hit the ground. So I'm pretty astute and I know what that was. And I said, oh, so I grabbed the president. I told him, hey, let's change your rhetoric. You don't come into their house and tell them, this is the Latino club, Mexican club that's been around 40 years. And you're over there saying fucking Mexicans. And, you had to communicate. You have to. And if you don't, you're going to have problems and you're never going to go anywhere because you're squabbling in your own town. So how are you going to go take on something like Hell's Angels when you got this little problem over here. Because if you can't handle that, then you have no belong. You don't belong around Hell's Angels. You're supposed to be able to, get along in your town and do this, and
Was that you guys' intentions early on?
yeah. I mean, we had a lot of people come and go, but once once we got a visit by a couple different members from different charters, and they all talked to us and kind of let me know blah blah blah, and what you're doing here is right on line of what you should be doing if you want to come up to our level. And I asked the guys, what do you think? And I probably lost 25% of the membership because, first of all, didn't have a bike to keep up with the constant going places, and then you were the discipline and the time, time away from home, time away from work. When you start this up, next thing you know, you're on the payroll. So, you're gone constantly. So your family life, your business life, your private life just kind of goes out the window, and you start getting an education on this new life that you want.
Yeah, but so a lot of people have this false perception on you join this club and you're making all this money, right?
Well, that's the general perception because that's what's put out in the media. Law enforcement doesn't get funding unless there's something going on to fund. Well, just these guys riding motorcycles and raising hell isn't quite good enough to get $1 million budget. So you got to throw in a little of that juice in there. They had, narcotics. So if they got you with a quarter ounce of weed, well, they went by the gram. So that was $18,000 worth of weed in your pocket. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so people have that perception that, man, all these guys do is swim in money. Let me tell you, some guys were very fortunate and they did the right thing. And, they invested, they did this, they thought about the future and they took advantage of it and they were very good at it. And then a lot of us, it's party time and, we don't think about that shit till like right now, like we're old going, oh man, I wish I would have saved some of that dough and put it away. Or, but like I said, buy these rental houses or, invest in something. So I did the bikes, but then, then I got sick and I had all these injuries and all that crap. So then there went my, because without being able to work, you're not building no bikes,
And it costs a lot of money to be a part of the Hells Angels, don't it?
It takes a steady stream, and you have to budget. You have to realize, and you got to be disciplined enough because, first of all, you got to get a bike that can do anything, anywhere, anytime. Okay, now you got to maintain that. You don't get handed a pamphlet and say, okay, here you go. Now I want you to follow 1 through 5. And when you're done with that, call me up and then we'll go 6 through 10. That's not how it works. Oh, you want to do this? Okay, see ya. You figure it out, just like every other guy before me figured it out.
Do you mind telling me the name of your old club?
It was called Scream City Motorcycle Club.
Still around?
No, the club absorbed that patch when we became Hell's Angels. We dropped it, but the reason the name of the club is back in the 60s when the club, we had a charter in Fresno, and California, them were the 60s. It was pretty wild. Well, when the guys would come to Fresno, they would part, between cops and citizens. I mean, it was just a fucking hoot. you know, and then the nickname for our town, instead of Fresno, they start calling it Scream City. Man, go down there, and man, guys would go, hey, I'm avoiding that motherfucker next time. You know, because the cops didn't like us. So you're fighting with them. You got other clubs. You've got just citizens that didn't give, you know, they didn't give a shit about no Hell's Angel. You know, everybody's fighting, you know what I mean? And that's just part of the Wild West, you know?
It's a Scream City. Were they 1%ers?
Yeah.
They wore a 1% diamond?
I didn't wear the diamond then because we knew once we made a deal, we already knew where we were going. The other guys, we, you know, outside of our area, we had the usual problems with the other teams, you know, and you know, I got pressure. I've got talked to or confronted several times about this, that, or the other, and like I was told, he goes, "Look, Mike, no matter what, don't be the guy that kicks it off." You know, in other words, at your point where you're at, you don't want to upset anything until you're done. You know,
Did the other teams know your intentions?
Oh yeah, yeah. You had. I mean, I'm honest. Hey, this is what we're gonna do. So I'm just telling you now. So whoever, if you want to talk, okay. If you don't, then fine. But like I said, our closest team to us was a couple counties away. So basically, we didn't play in their backyard, and you don't come and play in ours. That was the agreement that we basically had. You know, just leave us alone. We'll leave you alone. You know.
So did any of your guys get into any altercations before you guys patched over?
Minor incidents, and then you know the powers that be, because I wasn't a spokesperson at that particular time, so you know I had to let the upper echelon know, hey, blah blah blah, we had, you know, this went on, this transpired, this is what was said, and they said, okay, whoever happened to be in contact with these guys at the time, they would call and say, hey, you know, we got guys down there, leave them alone, and they're there to stay. So you've been officially notified. And it went as well as you could possibly expect. You know, they know we're going through town because the 99, to get anywhere, we had to go right past them when we were coming and going. So, you know, no shenanigans on the freeway. There was a couple little skirmishes, but nothing major.
So you guys had to pass through their town. Did they drive through your town too?
Well, vice versa too. You know what I mean? We had, because we're in Fresno. You know, you're dead center of California. Well, we have to go to the coast. You have to go Southern California, Northern California. You have to go to Nevada. You know, all the other places, Arizona. These are places that are now going to be part of, you're going to be a part of. So you got to get out there, you know, and you're damn sure not going to get in the car and go, you know what I mean? Yeah. Now, if there's a storm, okay, but for the most part, you know, it's ride. And people, the powers that be, watch all that. They want to see how many guys are, you know, at the different events. You'll see the guys over and over, and they go, there's the heart of the crew. You know, they're here, they're there, they're everywhere. And that's basically what you do during those hang around prospect times. You know, you gotta go out and meet people, and they gotta get to know you before they embrace you. You know, and that's it. Because I mean, I got more shit from our own people than anybody else. You know, our own people are pretty tough.
So are you guys wearing your patches the whole time?
We wore them until what did we do? When we prospected, then we dropped everything. But we wore our patch until we dropped it and became Hell's Angel Prospect Charter.
So everyone wears a prospect patch.
Well, once we dropped it, then we became not individuals, but a charter. We're a prospect charter in the state of California. And in them days, I think there was, Nevada just, they just got Nevada all settled in, and they were the club before us. They went into Reno and they got it going on, and they finished. So we were the next group of guys that were new to take over and come into a new area and start a new charter.
And by this time, did they already do? They did the Dirty Dozen and all that patched over.
All that. Okay, when I came in, the Dirty Dozen was doing what I was doing. They were coming from Arizona. Nevada was coming from Nevada. Everybody, we're all okay. When we go to an event, you got 3 prospect charters helping out at these events. So it's like, man, it's massive, and everything was going well. And then you're meeting people from outside, because the Dirty Dozen was way different than us in California. They were old school biker, you know what I mean? They were still riding rigid frames and coming. I said, holy shit.
Yeah, it's ape hangers, right?
Oh, but they would ride from Arizona in that rigid frame all the way to Central California. And and I go, God, got to give it to these guys. They were doing it, and it was good. I'm glad I did it the way we did it, because I knew more people. I learned more stuff. I didn't have to, it was okay to make a mistake as long as it's not too big, because you can rectify it when you're here. But as a member, you're expected to get all those mistakes out of your system. So
did you make any mistakes that were like, damn, I might be out?
Well, once or twice I got a little nervous. And that's because another prospect charter had kind of bullshitted the West Coast about where they were and what they were doing. They were saying this, but one of the senior members peeled off and went down to see for himself, and what he was told and what he found when he got there was 2 different things.
So he goes down there and he finds out that they're not there.
And the closest one was like maybe an hour and a half away. In other words, the area that they claimed that they were living and where they were conducting business as a club and this and that wasn't exactly the truth. When we did our monthly meeting, when it was their turn to let everybody know what's up, well,
anyway, what happened, man? You got to tell me.
Well, let's put it this way. Their president come out of the door and he was leaking. Okay. And then the Sarge grabbed him by the collar and says, get your ass back in here, and they finished whatever business that they had to talk about. But after it was said and done, one guy got to stay, the rest were gone. And that one guy ended up going to Reno for a while, But anyway, yeah, in them days, there was a lot of discipline, and you couldn't bullshit your way through nothing, because these old coots, they pay attention to what you say. They pay attention to everything, your body movements, when you go somewhere, how you interact, who you talk to, what everything is being scrutinized, because, there wouldn't be no bigger feather in a cap for law enforcement is to sneak somebody in there, and it happened once or twice during my time. I seen it happen maybe 4 times the whole time I was in. So,
yeah, but they didn't get full patches, right?
There was guys that were full patch members that ended up being shitheads.
Oh, I'm sure, but they weren't police officers.
No. Well, the only one that was an actual police officer and not a cooperating witness was that Jay Dobbins.
But they say that he didn't get a full patch.
He did not. They kind of mocked it up to look that way. They mocked up a crime scene with one of the other team members, and they created a situation that never happened, and that was a wake-up call for the whole. That's it. No more Mr. Nice Guy shit. In other words, this is the way we are. We can't. You just can't. If you see something, you're going to have to pay a little bit closer to attention to it. Don't just let it go. If something bothers you, then follow up on it. Don't just but because that doesn't work.
Have you ever been in the room when they confronted someone for working with law enforcement?
No. It was all dealt with before, because like we're trying to conduct meetings and business and pay our bills and and upcoming events and upcoming people coming in. So that would kind of sidetrack it. So if there is an issue of that nature, that would be handled the persons and people, whoever involved, they'll keep it small, and as which you should, I believe. You guys got the paperwork, you guys got this and that. I trust that you're going to handle it appropriately, and then it's none of my business after that. My business is to watch my area and my things and the people that I let around the club.
So when you're a prospect or a prospect charter, you're sitting outside while everyone's having church and you're standing guard and doing things like that, right?
Yes.
Walk me through when you finally get your patch or your charter. Do they all get it at the same time?
Yeah, we were at a meeting up there, and there was some discussion, and they, believe it or not, Hell's Angels have a sense of humor. There's a few guys in there that love to make a motherfucker squirm. You know what I mean? They love it. Watch this. And it started that way. And I started going, are they with us? Because I don't know how to react. I don't know them that well.
You feel like you're getting kicked out, right?
Well, I feel something's funny. And then because I got one of them mouths that can't keep shut. I said, hey, looky here. Blah, blah, blah. And then the with me stopped and they said, turn around. And on the bar was all of our brand new stuff sitting on the bar, laid out, ready to go. So they fucked with us for about 10 minutes and got us a little twisted. And then after that, then it was welcome to the family. And here we go, And for me, or for us, 5 years and 11 months was a long time. And that day was the relief for me as a leader. It was like, oh God, in other words, it was worth all the shit we went through, all the headaches, stress. I wish I would have handled my personal life better, but okay, well, I learned later on, but anyway, yeah, it was the day to remember.
What year was that?
2000, a millennial baby.
So 2000, you get your patch.
11/11/2000.
What's it like to now finally you can sit in these meetings that you used to stand guard and never get to sit down in these meetings? Does it feel good when you're walking in, like, now I get to sit down with these guys?
Well, it just because I never had really much as a prospect interaction. They were there for business. It was money, it was things that had to be discussed or whatever's going on. So now that I'm in there and I'm looking around and, basically I'm listening. And then, like I said, each charter has to, if they got charter business like a corporation meeting, then when we come up, hey, this is what's going on. Hey, we have an event. Hey, we have a legal case. Hey, we have this, or who out there needs some help, and we'll come down there and help you at your event if you're shorthanded. Whatever it took to get in there and be us as a whole is what we did. And for the first year, because they don't let nobody in. I had to go in because I was a president in my charter, but the rest of the guys, I think, had to wait a year before they actually came in. You know what I mean? Because there was no reason to have that many people in there. There was only one guy that has the information, and that's all we want in here.
That was you.
And that was me.
How long do these meetings last back then?
I mean, it depends. Certain subject matters, because the guy, sometimes we beat the hell out of a subject, 2-3 hours when it should have been 2 or 3 minutes. But then it comes up, and there are certain people that want clarity. There's a lot of guys that have been there for a while. They don't want to leave there not knowing. They want clarity. They want it out of your mouth. They go, okay, let's be clear about this, and da, 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 da. Now, are we going to adopt this policy? I mean, it's policies, it's rules, it's problems within ourselves that we need to cure so that we can get better in the future. So things are discussed. I haven't really been in, like 2 or 3 hours minimum, 3 hours up to 10. If it gets a little warm in there, then, you got to take a break and then come back in. And sometimes the fellas didn't see eye to eye, and they had to get that out of their systems and then get back to business. Like I said, it's no picnic if you're into what we do, and not just the parties. Business is business, and I'll tell you, it's a rough crowd. They very serious about what they do, and I found that out, and I became that after a while. I just like no nonsense. I wasn't chitty chatty, I was just like
no time for fucking around, basically.
Well, I just became what I became. It's just like now I'm a monster, and everything I do has got to be perfect, and everything which that's me, because I have to answer to somebody. So I thought that putting the best foot forward and being disciplined and doing everything that we could possibly do, now even as members, I lost a couple guys they just couldn't keep up with it. This I can't do every weekend. I can't do that. Well, hey, then I learned that we split the guys up. We would go south or north or to the coast or whatever, but I'd send 2 or 3 guys here, 2 or 3 of us would go here, and so that way, no matter what you were doing that day, there was a Fresno member there and a prospect or whatever. Represent, and that's what you're there to do.
How long into you getting your patch do they tell you that they want you to be the secretary, or not the treasurer? My bad, not the secretary. No. The treasurer.
That's the other channel. Come on. No, it was what had happened is Fresno caught a legal case over another club, and the whole thing should never happen, but it did.
They over another club?
Well, there was another club got in some problems, and a couple of my guys were there, and things got out of hand. So then we caught a gang enhancement case early on. So when this is going on, we got legal problems. Well, anyway, because it was a club problem, we had to ask for financial help to get all these attorneys and pay for what it was going to take to defend ourselves, right? So I wrote up a motion. Presented it to the club. They said, okay. They gave me the money. And then what I did was I kept track of every penny. This went to this went to this, paperwork, the copies of this, private investigators. You've got all these things are involved in a legal case, and you're not out there paying somebody to do this. You're doing the footwork and all that by yourself because number one, you should, because it educates you. Number two is it saves money, getting involved in your own defense,
Yeah,
well,
then
when
having
I
some
did
lawyer
that,
do it all, right?
well,
Lawyer.
So anyway, when we got done, I every month gave a statement and we paid the money back. And well, then one day, the treasurer says, hey, I'm gone, I'm done, can't handle it no more. So then this position's open. And like I said, that's when a couple senior members approached me and said, hey, if we had something for you to do, would you do it? And I said, well, if it's club related, yeah. And then I asked them what, and they said, no, you're fucking, you know what I mean? You're new. You don't have no right to ask a senior member shit. Well, then we went to our monthly meeting and all of a sudden it came up and I went, oh no. And he says, we want that guy. And then another guy from Reno who was he still is top dog in Reno to this day. Very smart, very financially savvy. But they voted and I became the treasurer, and the job is such that every year when the vote came up, blah, 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 everybody just kind of hid out. I swear to God, everybody had to go to the bathroom at the same time. We need, does anybody want to do the treasurer? We got somebody else up. Next thing you know, I look around, there's nobody there.
Because they don't want to do it, right?
No, they don't want it. Who wants to handle the money with this group?
Yeah.
I mean, come on. I mean, and I did it and I did the best I could. And, towards the end there, everything was, too much stress. I was falling apart. I just, I wasn't getting help and our workload ended up being more and more and more. And, then the club was changing, as Pee Wee said, we noticed things after we'd been there 7-8 months or years that things started changing. It wasn't like that no more. And then me chasing down money and chasing down certain individuals that, like, hey man, we all know what day we got to pay. We know what's coming up. We're notified months in advance. On this day, this much is due to either a run site or to a lawyer or to whatever the business was. So when you came to that meeting, you came prepared. Okay, well, what happens if 100% of the guys don't do their fair deal? And let's say I got 2 or 3 that are outstanding. Well, that's a lot of money that I'm supposed to pay somebody and I can't pay them the full amount because somebody was short or, oh, hey, I'll catch you next. No, there ain't no catching me next time.
And was it the same people all the time? Was it the same people all the time?
There was a couple that you could count on. They would, but there was a lot of brothers in there. If they, and it's, they're not lying. They go, oh man, I forgot this. Right. He goes, I'll tell you what, as soon as I get home, I'll blah, 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 and blah. And depending on who it was, I said, no problem. So let's say this is Saturday. On Monday morning, I got the funds in the bank. They kept their word. Now, naturally, like with anybody, there's going to be 1 or 2 that are going to be a pain in the ass. And, and just for me, after 10 years, 9 years of doing it, it just started wearing on me. I was tired of being stressed out. I was tired of worrying about money. I was tired of answering for people, like I'm not the policeman. I'm a pencil pusher, guys. I keep track of shit and I make sure people get paid, people get done, and our financial business is on track every fucking day.
Have you seen people get kicked out of the Hells Angels for not paying their dues?
As individuals, an individual in a charter that doesn't, he keeps being, and that next, he's down this ridiculous amount, which I feel like, fuck. I mean, if 2 months is all I'm going to give you, and there was guys that would milk it. Cause like I said, like with every organization, there's going to be somebody that tests those boundaries. And if there's no repercussion, then they keep doing it. Well, I passed some motions that if you didn't do this as a charter, you got fined. And then on this second time, if you did it, then I wrote another motion is you owe double, right? Maybe that'll stop them. You owe us $1,000 for this. We'll make it 2,000. And if you didn't pay that, then you had to come explain to the powers that be why you're not paying your bills. If you have a severe legal case, you're missing some members, people are sick. I mean, there's always circumstances that are legit. Okay. But like I said, in any big organization, there's always got to be that one that tries. And, that's why I set in place some of the rules that I did.
So say they get fined double, right? Is what happens if they don't pay it still?
Well, I never had anybody do that, but I would just go ahead and give you my estimate. It wouldn't be good. And nobody wants to freeze a charter in our thing because of non-participation, non-payments, non-this, non-that. There's things that you could freeze a charter over, and it's been done. I saw it happen a few times.
So when you freeze a charter, what's that mean?
It means that you're no longer able to conduct business as Hell's Angel Charter anymore. You're frozen, and then the powers that be are going to have to decide whether we want to keep these, we want to send new personnel up there, or whatever it is that is decided, or do we want to? We really don't like to just completely get rid of anything.
What happens to the members, though? Do they still get to operate as members?
If they're a member that was a shithead, then you're gone. If you're a member that was trying, then you're given the opportunity to go to another charter and function with them until the problem straightens out,
Now, you've been a president for a while, long time, right?
I would off and on, like I said, in Fresno, and then I was vice president down in Santa Barbara, because I had experience with the legal and money and these things. I went to everywhere, and I knew so many people when I prospected that long. You get to know East Coast, West Coast, Alaska. I mean, all these guys knew me, and so we could talk and get things done, and that was the way to do it. Agree to disagree. Let's get this thing done, and that way the machine keeps moving. But
do you ever put a member's patch in a box?
I did. I put one of my guys, just got it out there and love him to death, and you got to have him because everybody needs one like him. But God damn it, boy, he would just. And then finally I said, okay, 30 days, patch in a box, clean up your shit, quit fucking, and I think he got a kick out of watching me lose my mind. I think it was a kind of a thrill. But then once it became, I got mad. I said, hey, look, man, come on. There's more to this job than you think. It's hard, so kind of cooperate with me if you would. But yeah, I did it once with one guy in my charter, and after that, if they weren't going to make the grade, I just get rid of, just that's it. This isn't for you. You know the rules. You've had long enough time to get it down, and if you haven't got it down by now, then maybe this isn't for you.
Have you seen a lot of guys get sent down the road?
Well, it was kind of like real rare my first, 5 years or so. But then after that, man, and then it was the people that were sent, 30-year members, 25-year members, guys, cooperated with law enforcement, or they did this, or, and like Sonny and I had talked, he goes, hey, look, they had options and they chose self-preservation over defending the club. In other words, if you take a deal and you throw away your appeal rights, well, that kind of is self-preservation for you.
But a lot of people have done that, though, in the past. A lot of people have accepted deals and they still let them operate.
Hey, I'm telling you, man, it just, I never thought I'd see it. But then now, now, these current days, it's commonplace. Every month there's a handful. Oh, did you hear this? Or this guy this and this guy that. And, we have our organization with the ex-members. Well, we're looking and we got 4 new ex-members this month. Well, what happened to you? Well, and end up, a little bit of dirty pool, a little bit of ego, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and guys get bounced.
But you hear stories of people testifying and they're still in.
Well, I know of a few cases right now. That friend of mine in Canada, the guy that told on him, still an active member, and my friend is just like livid about it. I have a friend of mine in Central California, good member, got bounced, but the sneaky, dirty, behind the back bullshit. Yeah, okay, if a guy has an issue, right, we're supposed to be brothers and we're supposed to do that. The minute this guy buckles and goes to one knee, you kick him in the face and get rid of him, or do you help him out? Is he worth helping out? In my case and a few other things, I think we should help somebody out. And I have personally done it for members that were on the verge. I said, oh no, I'll take him. I'll work with him the best I can. And as an individual, I have, a club president, but as an individual, you have feelings too towards people that you've met and hung out with and done all these things and rode across the United States with. It's kind of hard just to kick them in the teeth and say, fuck you, But
did you ever think it would be you that would be leaving
after
so long?
When it happened to me, I know it was completely 100%. Didn't see it coming. I felt a few things that were kind of getting weird about certain situations, and I kind of went, and then one day, and I was, like I said, I was very bitter and very mad for like 2 or 3 years. You think about revenge, you think about this, you think about that, and then you get over it. Okay. Like most of the guys and ex-members, it takes a while, but most everybody gets over it.